So do you like slow burns with extremely long takes? Well, you're in the right place. The Vast of Night is brought to us by first-time director Andrew Patterson. We follow Faye, a young switchboard operator, and Everett, a radio DJ, who accidentally one night stumble upon a strange radio signal in 1950s New Mexico. After putting the signal on the radio and asking listeners if they have any idea of what this could be, they receive some phone calls trying to give them an explanation. From here, they go to track down the origin of the signal and investigate some strange going-ons in the town. As they unravel a mystery that's older than both of them, and they get answers to some questions that they may not be ready for in The Vast of Night. This is an interesting little indie because it is not made like a traditional movie is. There's a lot of experimental stuff going on in this movie that contributes to the overall package. The movie starts out as a knockoff version of a Twilight Zone episode. We zoom in on an old 50s black and white television that's showing the beginning of this television show that's pretty much the Twilight Zone, but for copyright reasons, they call it Paradox Theater. They use this technique a few times throughout the movie as a transition from scene to scene. I will say for the most part that it does actually work, but there are a couple of times that it does seem a bit overused and like they went on just a little bit too long with it. Something else there's a lot of in this movie is long continuous shots. There's some long ones here. One in particular is of note that goes through the entirety of the town from one end to another. This is a particularly impressive shot, especially given the independent nature of the movie, because as far as I can tell, there's no cuts in this shot, and it goes from one end of the town all the way to the other. And there's no CGI or anything like that employed that I could see. In fact, as far as I could tell, I don't think there's any CGI in this movie at all. Maybe just a smidge there at the end, but I'm not even fully convinced that that part at the end was full traditional CGI. I don't know though, maybe it was. But my point is that the movie doesn't employ a lot, if any, CGI. And these continuous shots they have are just that. They are true, long, one-take continuous shot. And it's not just like one or two. They're throughout the movie. Now the movie itself is not like one long continuous shot. There are cuts throughout the movie, but there are also extended scenes of upwards of like 10 minutes long of just one continuous shot. And as I said, that is very impressive, especially considering what is in some of these shots. Now some of the shots are impressive for a different reason. Yeah, they're long take, and that's hard unto itself, but they'll just be like on a character or two characters having a conversation. Now that doesn't seem nearly as technically demanding as something like I mentioned a moment ago where they went from one side of the town to the other. But it does speak to the performances of this movie and the story, because they are able to keep up a level of believable performances throughout these long takes with absolutely no breaks. And these are some of the more interesting moments in the movie story-wise. They really are, and we're used to seeing cuts in conversations between two people in movies. But here, there are a few times that there will be a conversation going on and the camera will just focus on one person that is doing the majority of the talking, and it just won't move. It will slowly pan in or out, and that's about it as they talk from beginning to end. And these are some long takes, and these people just monologue, but it is so interesting. You're totally invested in these parts, and while it sounds like it would be kind of a boring part of the movie, it's some of the most interesting parts of the movie. That really speaks to how good the performances are here and how good the writing is. And the performances here are really good pretty much across the board. This isn't a large central cast by any means, but everybody that we do have here does a fantastic job. Now this movie is a slow burn. If that's not your thing, then you're not going to be into this one. It takes moments in this night and just relishes in them. We've got extended scenes of people just sitting there or walking around talking, and what they're talking about doesn't always have something to do with the actual central story. On the surface, it doesn't. That's something else the movie actually does really good. It'll take these little moments of characters doing more or less menial tasks and turn it into an opportunity to build the characters naturally. Like there's this one part where two characters are changing reel-to-reel tapes so that they can find this tape that they're looking for. Nothing really exciting going on here. They're just putting a tape on here, listening for a moment, wrong one, take it off, put another one on. This goes on for quite a few minutes, but while they're doing this menial task, they start to talk and develop the characters in a very natural way. It's moments like this where the movie really gets you invested in these main characters. Through this natural character growth, you really get to know these characters very well, and by the end, you feel very invested in them and everything that's going on. So it gives it all that much more punch when something actually does happen. But that's going to be one of the problems for some people in watching this movie. Not a lot really happens in this movie. I mean, there is stuff that happens and it is very interesting, but as far as things developing and happening on screen, it takes a while to get there. Well, I think for the vast majority of the movie, they did a really good job of keeping everything interesting and feeding you just the right amount of information to keep you interested. There are some parts, especially closer to the beginning, that do drag a bit. The beginning in particular is one of the tougher parts of the movie to get through. The first 18 minutes of the movie is really the camera following this one character around as he interacts with other people until he meets up with the other character, and then they walk for quite a few more minutes and have another conversation that lasts quite a while. This part of the movie is composed of some very long continuous one-shots that are pretty impressive. There's a whole lot of stuff going on around them that they're navigating through very naturally. It's all very believable, but it's not all very interesting. By the time you get to the end of this 18-minute run, I feel like the movie would have probably lost some people. In fact, I know it would have, because the two other people I watched this movie with were on their phones, not paying any attention to what was going on at this point. While this is a character, conversation-driven movie, and definitely a slow burn, you still have to keep your audience engaged through interesting conversation. And while the things that these people are talking about, especially a bit closer to the end of this extended conversation, are interesting, they don't really add much of value to the rest of the movie, nor is that the way I would have personally chosen to introduce our characters. Besides the continuously long shots that are impressive, there's just not much of a hook there to keep you watching. It also doesn't help that after this part, it does take quite a few minutes after that for the actual story to finally kick in. It's probably about a solid 30 minutes before things truly kick off and start to get interesting and the mystery begin. And if you wait to the 30-minute mark to grab your audience, you've probably lost a good deal of them by that point, which is really unfortunate because what comes after that is very interesting and a great ride. A big part of this movie is the stories that our main characters are told by two other characters, one of which is over the phone and another one is in person. Both of them are done in this continuous long take form that I mentioned earlier. And even though we are pretty much just watching and or listening to a person talk for upwards of 5 to 10 minutes straight, what they're saying, what is written, the story and the implications of what they're telling us is extremely interesting and very well done. These don't sound like exciting parts of the movie, and no, they're not rousing big action scenes or anything, but they are very interesting and intriguing. And surprisingly enough, they were some of the best parts of the movie. They tell these stories in a very natural, real, and long way. But that's how stories like this get told in real life. There's no short versions here. It's not just someone telling our characters and us, the audience, the stuff that we need to know that pertains only to this movie. No, they tell it like a person tells a story. There's all kinds of other little details and things they throw out there. It's not a quick exposition dump to get you up to speed. And while these moments are long, they're very interesting and well done. And it gets you even more invested in the story and comes across as very natural and real. By the time I got to the end of this movie, it did leave me wanting more. However, it surprisingly left me very satisfied as well. While there are questions, I like how they ended the film, but I would like to see more of this type of filmmaking, but from about the 30-minute mark on. The Vast of Night has some great performances, a really interesting story, employs some very ambitious, unconventional filmmaking techniques that for at least the final 2/3 of the movie is very successful. Unfortunately, the first 20 or 30 minutes can be tough to get through. While there is some technical wowing going on here, you need a little bit more than that to keep your audience engaged. If it weren't for that, The Vast of Night would absolutely get a bump in rating, but as it stands, it is totally worth streaming.
Across the street.
If you like slow burns and interesting mysteries, give this one a shot. Just remember that after about that first 20 minutes or so, things do pick up considerably and you'll have a good time with this one. So there it is, guys, my review of The Vast of Night. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Cayuga.
They've come here before. They've liked this place. They always have.
Supposedly this story is loosely based on actual true events. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know what elements from this movie are based on these true events and not. And while I'm not 100% sure if aliens have been here to our planet or not, I do believe that there are aliens out there. But if they have been here, and they're watching all the broadcasts that we send out and everything, and they're thinking about doing some abductions in my area, can I just say, just leave me the fuck alone. Look at my content here, all the stuff I've put out on the airwaves, Clearly, there's nothing for you to learn here. Believe me, I am not the guy for you. There's absolutely nothing you will learn from probing me in the ass. I mean, damn it, man, why? Technologically superior races cross thousands of light years to come to Earth and fuck us in the ass with probes. I really don't want to be fucked in the ass by an alien, though. Please?